Hi, I am Kedger on Two Wheels, and due to public requests, I'm going to give you some tips on gear for winter. Meaning that apparently winter is beginning in September, in early September. I think this might be appropriate. So, here's the tips for the rain. Do not skimp on rain gear, okay? Water always finds a way. It's kind of like life in Jurassic Park. It will find a way to get in. It's just annoying. And there are several classes of waterproof gear. Hang on. Bom dia. Sim, 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 é para ali. Tá, de nada. So, there are several classes of waterproof gear. There's PVC gear, which is what I have in my arms and legs right at the moment, which is, since it's plastic, it is completely waterproof. 100%, no water goes through, except in the seams, because the seams obviously have tiny gaps in them, and so water can get through if they're not built correctly. And that's the difference between cheap-ass $10 PVC gear and very expensive motorcycle-specific PVC gear that costs 6 times that. Because the motorcycle PVC gear not only has more resistant seams because they're constantly being torn by wind, like these, which have double stitching, if you can see, because it's being constantly ripped by the wind. And so if it's a simple seam, it's just going to shred. That's the difference. Problem with PVC is that no water goes through also means no perspiration goes through, so you get soaking wet from your own sweat. So that's not good, except under pouring rain, but generally that's a disadvantage. Then you've got, price range wise, the waterproof equipment, which usually says it is a waterproof breathable membrane. This waterproof breathable membrane, as I've said in a certain video way back, is breathable waterproof. What is this? This waterproof breathable membrane is basically Gore-Tex. It's the same material, built exactly the same way, and that's because Gore-Tex does not have a patent. The guy that invented Gore-Tex did not file a patent, so it would be secret. And so when the secret came out, I think someone else also discovered it at the same time, and he couldn't file a patent anymore. So the material itself is basically public domain. It's a kind of a PVC plastic that when it's hot you just rip, you yank it, and then it becomes this micro perforated membrane that allows perspiration out but not water through. The holes are too small for water to go through, only water vapor can go through. That's what Geox shoes have underneath the soles or around the whole shoe. That's what Goretex is, and that's what the Dry-Star membrane, that's what the iDry membrane, that's what the Risa membrane do. It's all the same material. And these are waterproof. Why are they waterproof? Because even though they're usually made by some big brands as their own Gore-Tex type material, they're not built to Gore-Tex standards, so they're cheaper. And also they deteriorate much quicker, and then they start letting in water. Meaning, this jacket, for example, which you cannot see because it's under the PVC thingy, was very expensive, 200 euros, and this is a Alpine Star Scout jacket, which is supposed to cost around 400. Okay? It's top of the line, but it's not Gore-Tex. And while it is top of the line and being not Gore-Tex, what it meant is that on the first winter it was wonderful. No water, absolutely no water under any conditions whatsoever came in. And then at the end of winter, a small leak, very small leak on the armpits. Just enough for me to wonder if it was actually my sweat from the armpits. Because if the jacket gets soaking wet, then perspiration can't get out because the outer layer of cotton or of cordura on the jacket is soaking wet, so you get drenched in your own perspiration. It was just enough for me to think, well, maybe this is my own sweat, my own perspiration. And it got slightly worse. And I decided, no, this actually has a leak. And then summer came, and I stopped using the jacket. And then these rains came again. I put on the jacket, and I am soaking wet on my right side and very wet on my left side, so the armpits are completely opened. That's the problem with these membranes. They don't last. They are waterproof, but the seams eventually start leaking in water after about one winter. And then you've got what is Gore-Tex. These gloves are actual Gore-Tex. And they are gloves, which means they have seams everywhere, and they do not let in water under any conditions. I can dunk them inside of a swimming pool, and as long as water doesn't come in over the cuffs, nothing, zero water goes in. It's wonderful. So why does Gore-Tex work better? Simple. Gore-Tex is no longer the material. Gore-Tex is now the material plus a construction standard. Meaning you can only put your Gore-Tex brand, one, if you pay, most likely, and two, if you adhere to a load of very strict construction standards. One of them is, and this I know for a fact, every seam must be taped over using also Gore-Tex on both sides. Meaning if you have a seam, for example, on your armpits, you have to tape, not sew. The seams are sewn, okay? Then you have to tape Gore-Tex on the insides, and then tape Gore-Tex also on the outside, so that water cannot go through. If it goes through one layer, it's not going to go through the other. If a few droplets go through one, they're not going to go through the other. I think you also have to give more warranty on it. There's a lot of extra stuff you have to do, which makes it more expensive, and then you have to pay the brand. So generally a Gore-Tex jacket or a Gore-Tex equipment is generally $100 more than the equivalent waterproof membrane. But it's the same basic material, only it's built to a much higher standard, so it's much more expensive. So after all of this talk, finally the advice. Number one, either go big or go home. If you really want to get dry under any circumstances, Gore-Tex. Never mind the rest, just not gonna work. Maybe Gore-Tex will get a few leaks eventually, sometime down the line. So for that, I would always advise you to at least own one of these PVC jackets. If you got Gore-Tex, buy a cheap one. If you've got the other things, you gotta buy a good one. That's the first advice. For full weather riding, don't do what I did, which is try to save money. Gore-Tex all the way. And then the PVC thing, in case the Gore-Tex for some odd reason leaks, you just get a cheap one, and at least you'll get home dry and you'll get some peace of mind. But it's probably, very probably, not needed. Then you've got the intermediate version, which is you don't want to spend a fucking fortune, but you want to get dry. So you become an onion. You become the onion rider. Hey, that's a great name for me if I ever change my name from Pleasure on Two Wheels. The onion rider. Which means you've got your protective jacket made with the waterproof breathable membrane. And good God, I hope you can hear me because there's a lot of wind here. And then over that you're going to put your PVC gear, which is exactly what I'm doing. That will keep you 100% dry, because whatever water manages to somehow go through the PVC gear, it's not enough to go through the waterproofish gear you've got underneath, so you'll be cool. I almost fell over there. And this guy definitely crashed. So you will be dry. Thing is, you've got so many layers on you that you are going to be unable to move. Turning my head like this is very hard. I have to actually turn my shoulders to look at the mirrors. Walking is, well, odd. And plus, riding boots with PVC boot covers, not nice. So for the boots, Gore-Tex, seriously. For the boots, Gore-Tex, because you're not going to put PVC layer over the boots. It's just silly. I'm wearing that and it's just not, it just doesn't work. Same with gloves. Gore-Tex on the gloves, Gore-Tex on the boots. Pants and jackets, you can get away with PVC being an onion, basically. And then if you just want to ride in the summer, but you want some peace of mind in case you get caught out in the wind, just buy a PVC suit, buy a good one. Two-piece suit or one-piece suit, doesn't matter, make it a good PVC one. You spend around $100 for the whole suit, and you are very likely to be bone dry. Except under completely extreme circumstances, and even then, it might work. You might get wet from your perspiration, but well, you're saving money. So, well, that's the gear. That's how to stay dry in the winter. Always carry the gear with you because you never know when you're going to get caught out. For example, it's not raining now, and now it's raining. So you never know when you're going to get caught out. Always have it with you somewhere. Backpack, fanny pack, top case, fake tank, anywhere. Because this kind of stuff happens in the winter if you want to be an all-weather rider. You're going to be spending some extra money, yes, but it's worth it. You know why? Because riding like this, even though it's dangerous and pretty stressful, it's actually quite nice. There's no traffic, and it's awesomely cool. Look at that! Oh god, this is hail. It's hurting me. Over 3 layers of clothing, and it's hurting me on the shoulders. And it's so cold, I think I'm actually getting wet. That's not possible. I'm wearing a freaking condom over my gear. I'm not supposed to be getting wet. I hope it's just a cold feeling from all this water on top of me. Feels like needles stabbing me. This is some of the most extreme weather I have ever ridden on. And I've got a bald rear tire. That's a challenge. It's nice because it's challenging. It's not nice when you crash, but it's nice because it's challenging. Cleaning the visor. Oh, and for your visor, Rain-X or equivalent, there are some brands, some types of Rain-X which aren't Rain-X, there are other brands which are plastic safe so they don't yell out your visor eventually. I think I'm using one of those, but Rain-X yellows out plastic, but it takes a while. It takes like a couple of years. So a couple of years afterwards you might have to buy a new visor. I think it's much safer to ride with it on your shield and never having to worry about water on your shield. Because it does a miracle, it really does. Well, after this very longish one, look, it stopped raining again. The weather's all warped in Portugal at the moment. That's it. Gauge route.